Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Mercury Sextile or Trine one's natal south node. Now, this transit can manifest in communications, learning, assimilating information, siblings, cousins, neighbors, short journeys, local transportation. This could be in harmony with your past. And as an example, it could be a time where maybe it could be learning, maybe relearning something from your past, or something you learn from your past is paying dividends now, whether it could be just something very simple, you know, like changing a lock, or fixing or doing some work on your vehicle or what have you. It can be time too where you may be taking, could be an auspicious time for short journeys, going to places that were connected with your past. If you have your south node, say in the third house, it could be going back to high school, taking a nostalgic trip back there. It can be a time to, if there's things that you need to leave behind, this is a time where you can more apt to formulate your plan, how you're going to do it, whether it's, could be a family situation, could be a relationship, it could be, some situation, some group, maybe it's to your detriment, maybe there's, people that that are doing unsavory things and they're not to your liking, and this is a time where you're more apt to formulate, I would say, more of a mental plan to extricate yourself from that situation. It can also be a time where if it's a situation where you need to leave, with siblings, cousins, or neighbors, whether it's a compatibility issue or you just need time for isolation. This could be a time where it could be beneficial to do that, where you're able to do that with little diversions, distractions, or interruptions. It could also be a time to, when you have this transit, it's more where you can articulate, I would say, the negative that's connected with the south node. Um, if you have your natal south node, say it's an Aquarius, it could be, and maybe there's some idiosyncratic or non-conforming, type of rebellious behavior you may have been exhibiting, where you may, it's something where you need to do something about it. You're more able to talk about it and maybe come up, with something where you can actually do something to try to limit that at least the best that you can. The thing about this transit too is that remember that the south node, well, south node I believe can be about what can affect somebody, to their detriment. And like in my case, I have my natal south node in the fifth house. So I mean, mine could be just being overly cynical or even critical of of lovers, of romantic partners, people. It could even be, I would say, people that I might share some kind of hobby or thing, or some game that we both enjoy, some that I share some kind of amusement or hobby with, as an example. It can also be, the south, and it could be a time for me when I have this transit where I'm more able to articulate, those issues, or verbalize those issues and talk about them, and be able to understand a little bit more and do something about them. And the thing is, the fact that Mercury is connected with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, these people, can be beneficial as well. In my case, I don't have any. I don't have any siblings, but anyway, part of that doesn't apply to me. But I want to say also about this transit is that, okay, the south node can be connected, with overdeveloped and redundant qualities. And the thing is, going back, to the south node in Virgo as an example, that could be like the person, like say if somebody has a south node in Virgo in the 11th house in their chart, it could be the person that's looking for the dwad within the dwad in the chart. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything. It's good to be analytical, to be able to go into really strong detail regarding things, whether it's astrology or what have you, or it's, computer diagnosis. But at the same time, South Node in Virgo can be very, really, may go very deep and sometimes overanalyze something to a point where it doesn't even need to be, analyzed anymore. And the thing is, it's more apt to where one again can verbalize those issues and talk about them and really have an understanding of what they are, how that energy may be manifesting negatively. Now, the South Node is it's not all completely negative. I've said this in other videos in the past, and I'll say it in this one, that, you can take, the qualities of the South Node and incorporate them at least a little bit with the North Node, but it's just not something you're supposed to emphasize or accentuate, especially in that second half of life, I would say like age 35 and later. Now, another thing is that this transit as well, okay, the South Node can be connected with what we're naturally proficient in as well. It's not just overdeveloped and redundant qualities. We can actually be good at this. I have the South Node again in Virgo in the 5th house, and that can manifest in analytical, enjoyment, being able to extrapolate sports data, which I will do sometimes when I do like my NFL prediction videos. Haven't done them in some time, but that is an example. And excuse me. And the thing is too, it could be where siblings, cousins, neighbors, people that may have been prominent in your early education or short journeys even that you go on, like storekeepers as an example. These people can be in agreement with these qualities, at this time. The things that you can be naturally proficient in, if you have the South Node, in Aries as an example, it could be just general courage, leadership qualities, being able to take action, being assertive, aggressive. Those things may be such where there may be more agreement with those qualities at this time. Could also be, as I stated before, now, the South Node can be, could be the negative expression of the sign. Somebody, with the South Node in Taurus, say, it can be a person that might be very materialistic or avaricious, very acquisitive to the point where it's redundant, where it's like where there's just too much emphasis on those, on these Taurian interests and what have you. These qualities, might be, again, it might be excessive. I mean, Taurus, the sign by itself, can be very persistent, but it can be like the person, that calls somebody up like, 8 times in an hour, and if they haven't answered the first 3 times, say if the South Node is in Taurus in the 3rd house of communication, that could be an example, right there. So it's something that you have to remember, that, the South Node is not completely, adverse, but it can be excessive, and it's just about, you understanding that it can be very extreme in its expression. Now, I wanted to say as well, another way that this transit may manifest, it could be where there's positive communication, of course, associated with Mercury. It could be regarding somebody that was prominent, with someone that was prominent in your past, which is the South Node. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal South Node is in Pisces in the 8th house, it could be somebody that may have been figured prominently in a spiritual, which is the metaphysical, transformation, which is, of course, that's connected with the 8th house. Now, it may also be a time where it could be very beneficial and auspicious to learn, which is Mercury, about what you're naturally proficient in, something associated with that South Node placement. If the South Node, say, is in Virgo in the 11th house, it could be an ability to diagnose, which is Virgo. It could be computers or even astrological charts, and astrology is connected with the 11th house. Now, that could be as an example. Now, let's say it's also a time, I would say too, where siblings, cousins, and neighbors, which is Mercury, can favor what you are trying to leave behind, which is the South Node. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back, but anyway. Now let's say, for example, if the natal south node is in Aries in the 12th house, it could be, angry, which is Aries, over things that may be, imagined. It could be like things that, unintentional slights as an example, or, somebody, or feeling ostracized or isolated when, the reality may be the person may be isolating his or herself, and it has nothing to do with anybody else making that person do it. Now, short journeys, which is Mercury, is something that can be, it's really can be beneficial to go away from something. If you're trying to get away from something and taking a short journeys, this could be a favorable time to do it. And let's say, for example, if the natal south node is in Capricorn in the 11th house, it could be some kind of restricting, or inhibiting, which is Capricorn, or future, or even say if it's south node is in Capricorn in the 4th house, it could be restricting or inhibiting home life as another example. Anyway, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.